Welcome back to the Men Seeking Freedom podcast. We are both a podcast and a brotherhood. And what we do is we attract men who are really seeking peace of mind and true freedom in our life. And the brotherhood component is where men can be accountable to each other as they get their voice and they talk about issues that challenge them. By the way, menseekingfreedom.com, go there and you'll see the Freedom Brotherhood option. Please check that out. Three primary areas that men get together to talk about: relationships, including our roles of father, son, things of that nature. We talk about career, and we also talk about health, both mental and physical. That encompasses all of the areas. I'm excited today because we're going to really not exclusively focus on career, but our guest today is Lori Gunning. Lori is a career marketing services and HR professional, and she's been involved in corporate recruiting, and she supports people from students' age right through to high-profile leaders. I met Lori kind of incidentally on LinkedIn a few years ago, where she actually helped me out with something. That's the way it all came together. And just although we're coasts apart from each other, I've really grown to appreciate her contributions on LinkedIn. So Lori, welcome. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I thank you for inviting me. What a privilege to be here. I also want to compliment you again on holding space for everyone. I think it's very timely, and it's validating, it's welcoming and supportive. And especially, with what's happening not only in the job market, but socially and politically and economically, obviously job market. So anyway, I admire you for doing this. I think it's incredibly important, and it allows other people to come forward and share their experiences and feel supported and validated, right? They're not alone. They're not alone.
That's a key theme, by the way, Lori. Just
It absolutely is.
simply saying you are not alone is key to this audience, in the fact that they may be less inclined to speak up about sensitive issues in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things we had talked about leading up to this, and you getting to know me a little bit better, was I had shared with you, I was in corporate sales for many years. And it was really strategic how I got into sales. It was somebody saying to me one day, "Hey, Michael, you want to get into sales? You have a personality for that." That's how strategic it was, Laura. I was working at it for decades. And one of the things I shared with you, and this is going to be kind of a segue for you to talk about what you're seeing now. It's been a few years since I've been out of that. And I said, Lori, the reason I got out of that, I went into it because it was a sexy title, great perks, great income potential. But for me, with one catch, it almost killed me.
Yeah.
Emotionally. And this was back in an era where I think, and I'd love to have you talk about this a little bit, where we didn't really talk as much about culture back in those days. Right. And I just thought I was a lost, misaligned soul. And I know one of the things you and I've talked a little bit about on the lead up is the fact that we're living in a time now where the culture you work in addition to the work you do and the title and all that, is important. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're seeing out there.
Well, I work primarily with I know professionals that are either anticipating disruption or have experienced disruption. That means they're currently in, disruption. And varying environments. I have worked myself in environments that were toxic, soul-sucking environments. And I too join you in that, those were topics that were not ever discussed, whether you're, happy in your environment or it's a culture issue or so forth. And fast forward today, there's been so much amazing work around the improvement of culture and leadership. I mean, it's really incredible to see. And I'm inspired by it. I hope it continues on. There's so much more we have to learn about environments and how we work together as teams, but how we also lead. Now, there's the difference between being a manager and being a leader, right? And I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people, whether you're experiencing disruption or not, but to take a look at your leadership philosophy, see where there's opportunity to take personal and professional inventory, if you will. We are experiencing a lot of media around poor environments, and it's influencing people in a rather negative way. At the same time, I think it's influencing people to look at things differently, right? To create a more positive experience. So, kind of the positive and negative side of what's happening in the media in terms of, let's just say layoffs, right? And during that, we're also seeing their experience at a cultural level too. Good and bad time for all of that, honestly. It's really unfortunate what's happening. I wrote a post about it not too long ago or a few days ago, I'm not sure when, and adding my view on humanely approaching layoffs versus not, and the gap. And that is so stark as it was years and years ago, than what it looks like today. And so, again, I think it's an amazing opportunity to take a look at who you are. It could be, at the management level. It could be at, the leadership level, and how you are embracing what's happening, changes that you can make, right? And certainly take a look at your leadership style and where the gaps and the interrupters are, right? And where you can be contributing to unproductive, or for the sake of the word, toxic environment versus not, right? It is leadership down, it is leadership down. In terms of being unemployed, I really believe through these times, because this is my personal experience, it's the time to reevaluate, as painful as it is, as uncertain as it is. And really, I really cannot underestimate how traumatic it is to lose employment, especially when you know what is happening around you in this environment. It's also an opportunity to take a look at what you want to do, okay? Areas you can improve in, leadership assessment. So really taking a deep dive into your leadership fluency, okay? Taking a look at how to approach the job market, right, in a way that is healthy. Taking a look at the job market in a way that, you want to contribute. So targeting companies, right, getting very clear on what your value proposition is. It is amazing how many people that I work with that don't understand how to define or can't define their value proposition. They've never had to think of it that way before. And for some clients, it's a difficult exercise. For others, it's easy, right? And they can get to that definition a lot faster.
Lori, let me interject one thing here. Let's use like a hypothetical of there's a 45 to 50-year-old man engaged in this conversation with us, and they haven't looked for work in 15, 20 years, and they may be a part of a disruption environment. What are just some, obviously you help people in so many different ways, but for the person who's like, something's coming up here and I haven't been down this road in a while, what are just a couple, you started to touch on some of them, but what are a couple of things a person in that situation should be thinking about doing to make this process that they're probably looking at as challenging or uncomfortable as something they can really enjoy the process, so to say?
That's a great question. Everybody is different. Let me just say that everybody is different. My approach is to meet people where they are, not where I think they ought to be. So that is paramount. That is most important. Everyone is different. And I work with students, again, to high profile leaders, and they all have one thing in common. And that's vulnerability. Vulnerability. and I can hear it. And sometimes it is a lot more present than not, depending on the individual. When you are unemployed over 50, it lands differently. I do not want to invalidate anyone's experience based on age. I really want to make that clear. When you're over 40, it hits differently. You are aware of ageism. You have hired people. You're aware of bias. You're certainly aware of the job market. There are various clients that have already done a little bit of research, and so it's caused some fear and certainly more uncertainty. You are planning for the latter part of your life. Right? You worked really hard, and you now talking about having to dip into retirement and selling a home and moving, and what do I do? With the college tuition. And conversations become very painful, fearful, not only for the person, their family, and it also can trigger, in some cases, trauma that they've had from their past, right? And so they can be re-experiencing that. Now, I'm not a therapist in any capacity, but I do incorporate some life coaching and some job wellness, job wellness planning, depending on if that person is open to it or not. I do say this to everyone, regardless of the situation, right? Just because you are unemployed, that doesn't define who you are as a person. That is a very easy thing to say. It is. And it's difficult to absorb that in all of your being, especially when you have worked hard your entire life, right? Or when you were a student and your family is telling you that you will only be successful based on this degree, you will only be successful based on XYZ, right? So you already have messaging. Your job is not your identity, although it feels that way. And unfortunately, we are in some times now where we have some fear-based marketing techniques. And one of the ways that they are, attracting, right, especially 50 over, it's through, get your identity back. Who are you without your identity? We will help you get your identity back. And for me, it's very upsetting messaging because
It's
that's
confused.
not
First of all, it's confused when you're just saying that. It's very confusing.
Very confusing. It's very confusing, and it's also, in my opinion, you're working with people who are vulnerable. You're working with people who are confused. You're working with people who are they're very concerned about the future. They're very concerned about where they fit within that future. Okay, and so it's messaging that I don't think is appropriate all the time. I really don't. I don't use that wording. I don't approach clients in that way. I approach clients in the way that no matter what the situation is, right, there is an opportunity for you. There is an opportunity for you. These are the steps I suggest we take. These are my suggestions. These are the exercises that I feel are going to be most beneficial for you, right? But greater things are coming. I really believe that for every single person, it's the time frame that they happen in. And we tend to be in outdated thinking. We tend to think, well, it used to only take me 30 days. That's right. It only used to take 30 days for employment. Well, it shouldn't take this long because I'm so experienced. Or recruiters ought to see the value that I have. I shouldn't have to tell them. Or I'm not good at networking. I don't want to network. I can't stand LinkedIn. I don't want to use LinkedIn. I mean, whatever the reasons are, it is a completely different landscape today. The tools that we use today are different, and the time frames vary for everybody. I work with clients, I'll rewrite their resume, and they'll get a call for an interview the next day after submission. I work with clients that get 2 to 5 interviews within 60 days, 90 days. I work with clients who get interviews, are doing all the right things, and I mean everything, right? And are still unemployed, right? After a period of time. So I don't want to put anybody into isolating language. I don't want to put anybody into magical thinking. And yet I don't want anybody to feel that, they're not worthy, because they are, right? This is a circumstance. It's one that I've walked. It's one that I've walked, and I understand the confusing messaging, and I understand, that what they have to look for down the road, right? Which is, I may not get the results as fast as I want. So when I work with leaders, especially, these are highly accomplished people, right, who want results right now. Right now. They're used to results right now. Right? They produce results right now. And, it's having to understand that we need to exercise some patience and, but most importantly, to give yourself some grace during the process. Right? So I find what it can, in terms of communication, what is most effective is A, to meet the person where they are, not where I want them to be, and then to help guide them, right? To look at themselves from not only a professional standpoint, but also taking the opportunity to grow professionally and personally, excuse me. And then to incorporate a support system. It's really, really important to incorporate a support system, whether that's your faith, whether that's your family, whether that is, your community, your partner, friend, right? But to build that immediately, don't wait for it. Don't wait for it. One of the hardest things to do is to ask for help. Okay, one of the hardest things to do. What does that make us when we're asking for help? It makes us vulnerable. Okay.
You're
I,
speaking to the origin of this
yeah,
community.
yeah. Asking for help is really difficult. And, it's usually from people who give a lot. They don't know how to receive. And I know that that's my experience. That's my experience. I received a messaging in a very complicated and dysfunctional home. And it was, nobody's coming. Nobody's coming for you. And you need to figure it out. You need to figure it out. You need to not ask anybody what to do. You need to, that was just reinforced over and over again, or there was abandonment when I did ask for help. I mean, it can go on and on. I've since done a lot of work around that. And yet I'm not perfect with that at all. I mean, I could still go into having an anxiety attack when I need to ask someone for something because I feel so exposed, right? I think the more that we talk about that, the less power too we take away from it and realize that it is human. Everybody needs help at some point in their life. Really, it not only benefits the person asking, but it also benefits the person on the other end. One of my best friends said to me years ago, she said, Lori, every time, you don't ask for help, you rob me of the opportunity to be of service. You brought me the ability to love and support you and to be of service.
That's powerful. That is
It
very
really
powerful.
was. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wasn't even aware that I was doing that. And so that was creating a barrier with our relationship. I've not looked at it the same. It doesn't mean that it makes it any easier to do, but it really is an amazing opportunity to break down some of that old messaging, within yourself. I honor that, right? I don't ever tell people, hey, don't feel that way, or what you're feeling is wrong, but hey, there's another way to look at it. I present the other side, right? Here's another way we look at asking for help.
If I can add in, so as someone who doesn't do what you do, but certainly observes the job or the marketplace, that type of things in terms of work. What's interesting that people should be thinking about who are doing that search or these transitions at this point is a few minutes or a while back, you're talking about culture and leadership. Back when I was in my sales career, that was still pretty much companies could keep within what was really going on there. And granted, it was all of our word of mouth that could tell the world what was going on. Look at where we're at now with ability. My impression, Laurie, is companies better become better at culture and leadership and treating people humanely, because it's so easy to find out now where I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like we can do a lot more, and speak to this, by the way, for the person out there who's going to be investigating. What are your researching companies? And I'm on the impression in 2026 is easier to do than 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They
Oh,
start
yes,
sharing of
definitely.
information.
I mean, research is at our fingertips with AI. I mean, AI, but also your network and referrals, so, and even people you don't know on the LinkedIn platform, just by engaging in comments, I have met some incredible people just by doing that. So you can learn a lot about environments that way, sure.
It seems we can't use, I hate to use the word excuses, but there's, in terms of maintaining, I mean, you present yourself in a way where we can all kind of generally agree the search process can be clunky, mechanical, impersonal.
Oh, very.
You present yourself as
Mm.
someone who's the exact opposite of that. When you first, you seem to have this motivation of, I'm going to make this as, again, humane, as palatable as possible, because there is something unique and special about you. And I'm going to work with people and treat them in a way where Lori's not going to be the cause of them not feeling good about themselves. Lori's going to walk through some tools and some processes that'll make them feel good about who they are. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Thank you for saying that. Oh, I appreciate that. Now, the recruiting landscape has been dysfunctional for a very, very long time. This isn't recent, right? There's just a lot of exposure, right, to the dysfunction, especially since COVID and even now. I mean, there's a shining light on in a lot of ways, right? But this is an employer-driven market. Right? We have more people unemployed than we have openings. There is less accountability, so you see more poor treatment. You see more ghosting, right? Poor treatment and ghosting has been, within the hiring climate for a long time. It's just more prevalent because, again, there's less accountability in this market. It's saturated. That is not okay. It is not okay. I wasn't okay then. It isn't okay today. Right? We really need to drive more conversation within the future of work around, right, how we are going to, lead people, how we are going to incorporate more efficient, more humane systems into hiring. And there's a lot of conversation around it. I mean, it's really exciting. Again, brilliant professionals on this platform are doing that. I encourage everyone, to join those podcasts, because there really is a lot of change happening, in that area. Nevertheless, people are experiencing, very poor treatment. So many, many years ago, I said to myself, how can I contribute? How can I, do this differently? And that was really the driving motivator, right, when I started doing this work. And my company started as a workshop to help underserved populations. I had always been writing resumes and I'd always been helping people with interview prep. But the company started very specifically in women's sanctuaries and recovery homes, those who had suffered human trafficking, domestic violence, and been recently incarcerated, enter into the workforce that was safe for them. They were not aware they had rights. They were in hopes that I could, help them to see that they weren't just subject to being treated poorly just because they had an experience in their lives, right? And over COVID, I changed the business model. It's still there. I still have the workshop, but I changed the business model to be more focused on career marketing services as I saw the market changing. And I joined a global network job board, and been very, very grateful that they've had me in service there for a number of years, which sort of grew into, other capacities into this space. And it's just, I just don't have interest in resume writing. I just don't have interest in succession planning. I just don't have interest in HR. I have a broad range of interests because I think they're all connected, right? And
Think
it
about,
certainly makes me a better writer and storyteller. The more interest that that I have, and that's for me. That's what I think helps me to be better. But there's so many different levels to this. When somebody enters into the job market, they'll go on, say, for example, you go onto LinkedIn, you need to learn how to do it. You've not been in the market for quite a long time. I'm very fortunate. I work with people in that circumstance. And they go on to LinkedIn or they just go on the internet and they think, how do I start this? There's so many competing opinions. There's so much noise. There's so many different programs ranging from, 1,500 to 22,000. Who's right? Who's got the best XYZ? And it's incredibly overwhelming for people. And I feel for it. I feel for that. I do. I encourage people to do this, to speak with service providers, to ask a lot of questions, to make the best decision for yourself financially and emotionally, right? I will tell people to make the best decision they need for themselves, and they want to be as comfortable with the person as possible. You're letting them in, you're letting that person in, and it's an investment financially. That could be a stretch for you. That's not a sales tactic that I'm told to use, but if I'm not going to get rid of it, it's not going to go away. I think it's important for people to know that I'm not the last stop. There are other people. And I'll even say this, if I can't help someone, I say so, and I refer them to partnerships that I have. Again,
Can I just point out something you said a few minutes ago? If I was in your business, you said something that aligns with how I feel, and that is, so when an entrepreneur starts a business, you were just talking about the workshops and how you were wired to say, how am I different? That tends to be a theme in entrepreneurship. One wish I would have for anyone who can work with you and you can help, which is already part of how you think, is I wish more people, Lori, in career misfortune or whatever they call their situation, could work with people who have a mindset of there's only one you. Oh yeah, you may have a job title that other people in the world have,
right.
but just in listening to some of the things you've talked about, and I know that's not easy to do, and you need to be around people like Lori who will reinforce that thinking. But I just find that, one of the toughest things about job search is, oh, I'm a salesperson, I'm an engineer, I'm a this. Well, there's 800,000 other people out there who have the same job, the same title, and they're looking for the same thing. And I'm like, I can't debate that. But what is it that you bring to this thing you do? And it sounds like the way you operate, you touch on that.
In terms of how I partner with clients?
In terms of the way you...
There needs to be everyone has a specific, I guess, well, we could call it job search campaign or, job search strategy, which is personalized depending on the person's industry, their professional title, and where they want to head. There needs to be a clarity around what you want to do. There needs to be a clarity and a knowing of who you are as a professional. Oftentimes, when we're employed for a long period of time, you're a senior executive or executive in a role and you progress for the last 20 years, there is accomplishment that in accolades you haven't had to think about in a long time that you forgot all about, right? And it's the time to assess that and bring that forward. It lends to your career narrative and where you're headed in the future, right? And so
career narrative.
Yeah, the career narrative. The one word I'm using more than ever, since the last 6 months actually, is the word prepare. Is the word prepare, and it's not to cause fear. It's just to, hey, listen, here's what's going on. The job market is no longer rewarding experience or loyalty or the fact that you toughed it out during a toxic environment and you gave up time with your family and you were there, 18 hours a day. It's not rewarding that. It's not an easy thing to say. Nevertheless, it's the reality. And prepare. What preparing does is it empowers you, number one. You're not waiting to the last minute and scrambling around. There tends to be a lot of anxiety at that point, right? You're not making decisions that you wouldn't normally have made. meaning, an executive program or a coach or whatnot, you didn't take your time to be thoughtful about it and what works for you, right? So you're making rush decisions, okay, that may not be beneficial for you, or they may be, I don't know, but you're making them rush, right? You now have a stronger sense of where you fit into the market, right? You have a plan, you have a repeatable plan. What this does is now position you to be your own strongest advocate. You have to be your own strongest advocate today. And without information, I believe, without information, you can't make informed decisions. And I know that sounds really kind of tacky, but it's true. Having information and then being able to make decisions with that information, it really cuts out this what do I do and flailing around kind of business, right? So people either want to take those steps, and then there's people who don't. I talk with executives who say to me, I don't need any more coaching. I don't need it. I've had all of that. I've had all the feedback I need in my career. I need a job tomorrow is what I need. And so what I'm going to do is just apply to everything that looks interesting, or, I'm going to wait until a recruiter reaches out to me because they'll be able to see, who I am. I shouldn't have to tell them who I am. They can see that.
Sounds like a favorite client type of yours.
I mean, but I honor that and I say, okay, let me know.
But you know what that sounds like?
Well.
So you know what so as you use the word prepare, which I strongly endorse, you know what the opposite of that is? And this affects, I think, a lot of people in search, transactional. So the person who said to you, I don't need coaching, blah, blah, blah. I need something tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. That is the transactional environment may land someone work on their time frame, but I think the odds of it coming back to bite them, because the preparation and the coaching part that brings out the who you really are and where you really best fit is an important part.
Well, it's also to prepare for those hiring conversations, because you've had them or led them, right? Again, this is a different climate. It's a different climate. And so not to repeat, we think on things we haven't thought of in a while because we didn't need to. And so there's these achievements and these, amazing discoveries or rediscoveries of ourselves as professionals that really just like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in so long. Thanks for reining it in, right? I know what I have to offer, right? And so forth. And they could have been coming out of a toxic environment, a toxic team. And so there's some undoing of that's necessary. And so taking some necessary time to unwind that, because not every organization is operating that way. So we tend to think kind of black and white. All right, well, I know I don't want this. Excellent, because it's just as important to know what you don't want. Well, all right, well, what do you want? Okay, and then to have a framework around that. And as we're talking, it's different today. And hiring is different. Hiring criteria is different. Talent assessment is different. Again, employer-driven market. The way that recruiters are finding talent too is more quiet hiring. AI has caused interruptions of its own.
Can we look? First of all, plug Laurie Gunning, LinkedIn, find her. No, that's an order. Well, here's the segue. So one of the reasons I really like Laurie is she will post something. Now, it doesn't necessarily directly affect me, but she's posting something about a topic that I'm super sensitive about, search. And recently, and I don't want you to brush over this, you had a great post about AI. And so let's be thinking again about the person who's absorbing this content, who may or may not have been in the search world for a while. And that person may have somebody in their life going, oh, AI is the rage now. There's nothing you can do. You can't even go to the bathroom without AI. You got to get AI in your job search to make it better for you. Do you have any feelings on that?
I think AI is an amazing tool. I do. I think it's an amazing tool. There's a lot of marketing around this, to job seekers, and trying to, I don't want to, I don't want to give any public negativity around it. It is data has made the media about this. And I tell people, don't you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anybody on the platform. Research this for yourself. We need to meet hiring leaders, decision makers where they are. Right. And we cannot like it. And certainly a lot of folks don't. But we need to meet them where they are. Right. And so credible surveys came out in January. Actually, let me back up. I first saw articles around this in 24, at the end of 24. The first credible survey I saw was in January 25. And it was very specific on how to avoid, right, the miscommunication when using AI and when applying for jobs. Now, this doesn't just go for applications. I mean, this is outreach or direct outreach, so forth. It doesn't matter the channel, because there's all these auto tools now, but that's, it's another conversation. But there's a lot of data on it this year that it's jaw dropping. At least it made my jaw drop. Hiring managers have said, what they feel about AI formatted resumes, generic presentation, generic wording. Everybody looks the same, sounds the same. Hiring is risk adverse. If credibility is questioned, I don't know this person has really done, these things. I don't know. Now I'm going to go to their profile. Say they go take that step, even though it's an AI generated resume. I have colleagues who do this, and they'll go on their profile and say, well, you know what? I need to take a look. And now the content doesn't match. Titles don't match. And now this isn't for everybody, but this is the conversation. This is what is coming out in terms of, data and the media. And everybody has the passionate response to it, right? And they're allowed to. They are allowed to. At the end of the day, right, we have to meet the market where it is and meet the decision makers where they are, right? The volume has overwhelmed pipelines and inboxes. And it's caused talent acquisition teams, actually forced them, because they have hiring benchmarks they need to meet. It doesn't stop, right? And so they're having to look at their processes. They're having to look how efficiently they can hire based on this amount of volume. And so they're changing how they're sourcing talent. And we need to learn about that. Amazing tool. My view is use it as an editing tool. Use it to edit, right? Use it to edit. Have someone who is, an expert in recruiting, hiring, understanding the market today, that can give you prompts, because not every prompt is an advantage to people, and they think they can do it on their own. Ask a professional, to help, or reach out to somebody who's an expert in that. But again, everybody has a passionate view on it. I'm not saying not to use it. Again, it's an incredible tool. Certainly has added to my life, professionally and personally, right? In terms of understanding AI, you need to upskill and have, education around it. I recently had a client ask me, should I use Six Sigma or AI? And I said AI. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you need to have a fluency in it, and there's many ways to educate yourself on that. Within job searching, research it yourself. As I said, you don't have to believe me or anybody else, because you're going to get a lot of opinions and noise about it. And the one that I saw recently, and I have to agree, if hiring teams are using AI to evaluate, then candidates should use AI too. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. You're using it for efficiency and selection, yes. When candidates are using it, it's separating them. Sound the same, look the same, copy and job descriptions. How do I know you know what to do, the job, and so forth, right? The language is just absolutely mirroring the job announcement. Now what happens? I pause. I don't know who you are. This is incredible to me. I don't know. And I'm just seeing 25 resumes that all look the same. So
that's really affecting the people on the, the people on the hiring side will use AI
absolutely, yeah,
for description, but it sounds like you're saying they're growing leery of
Well,
What
the,
they're
the
seeing-
job seekers, and I understand the feelings, job seekers go, well, if you're going to use AI in candidate selection, okay, then I should be able to use it when I'm writing a resume and doing all these things. And what we're saying is, I don't want to invalidate your position. Yeah, okay. But it's not the same. It's not the same. Again, risk adverse, again, I don't know who you are because you sound like the 25 resumes before. So I tell people from that standpoint, please learn the tool. Please use this to your advantage. It could be unknowingly removing you from consideration. Again, don't believe me or anybody. Go on for yourself. There's amazing articles on how to avoid this by LinkedIn, by journalists,
You're saying
well-renowned journalists.
how to avoid getting boxed out, you're saying.
Well, how to unknowingly eliminate yourself from consideration. Yeah.
Well, let's do this. Let's make a little segue. There's that going on in the world, but then there's always the way of, boy, if I build a network and I talk to somebody and Lori's the hiring manager and that's somebody I know
Absolutely.
knows Lori. Talk a little bit about, obviously, I understand.
Absolutely. Well, again,
network.
it's meeting decision makers where they are. Okay. And it's meeting them where they are. And it is to create and to have an approach, right? That you're using all channels, that you're using your network, that you're following, companies, you're following employees that work for that company. You're using LinkedIn as a live resume. That's what it is. And I get it. And people are comfortable, and I understand you don't like social media. I completely get it. But people are in the comments. People are looking at your communication style. People are learning about your knowledge of your industry. People are engaging with you. You don't know who's paying attention. You really don't. Some people feel that, and again, this is fine. Some people feel that this one channel, one approach is the best way to approach, to job search. Others, this is the approach. This is the only way because top candidates are found. I don't support one stronger than the other because I've seen all channels work multiple times, not as outliers. So I feel for myself, as much information as I can to the person, right? Presenting how to do each thing, right? Given the channel, giving them communication templates, giving their information on how to tailor their documents, right? And so forth, right? I don't advocate for this is the best way over this one. And very simply, and I don't know, people might go into my DMs and throw blows with me on this. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a psychic. I don't know ultimately what's going to work. I mean, you'd be very surprised. There's a huge argument now about, don't send cover letters. Nobody reads them. It's a complete waste of time. Don't send thank you emails. That's a complete waste of time. Nobody reads them. Isn't going to make a difference anyway. Well, in my experience, cover letters have proved to be very advantageous. It's your opportunity to answer a question that maybe you didn't during the interview, to sell yourself, to highlight your value proposition again, to show interest in the role. So you're not hearing me say not to use them. If you don't want to use it, that's your choice. That's your right. And same thing with, thank yous.
Thank you is demonstrating. I want to only be around. This is selfish sounding. I only want to be around people who are aware of the value of, because people demonstrating gratitude, because when you are trained to be gracious, that kind of affects the rest of who you are as well, as opposed to just, I take everything in life for granted. I don't need to thank anybody. That has an entirely different.
Well, we are also, and I can speak for myself. I'm Gen X. You say thank you. You say thank you for your time, what have you. We have to understand each generation is approaching this differently. There are different, they learn different norms. They don't understand some of the practices from Gen X. That doesn't make any sense. Why are they doing that? And we need to learn why that is. we have a much stronger workforce and organization for it. There are reasons for it. And so if it's people want to learn about it, I think it's important. You know, I have a number of students like, are you kidding me? I'm saying now, thank you. Why would I do that? Why would I say thank you? I mean, I showed up. Why would I do that? And I understand completely, right? They're the first generation to be solely online. They are more aware than they're given credit for. They really are. They're more aware of corporate dysfunction and greed and the social and political climate, and social injustice. I mean, I could go on. They're more aware than they're given credit for. But their norms are not the same as a traditionalist or a boomer. Certainly, not mine. But here's the difference: when you explain it to people, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Oh, okay. So again, information is empowering. Information creates this position where you're your own strongest advocate, right? Whereas they didn't understand why you take certain steps in your job search. Now we understand. Does that make sense?
It does. So here's what I want to ask you. So everybody's been taking in these pearls of wisdom, the Lori Gunning style, which is unique in the world. And I had thrown it out there, a great way to learn even more about you and connect with you is on LinkedIn, Lori Gunning, Gunning. Is that the prime? If somebody is saying, hey, I would like,
yeah, you can reach out to me there.
that's the best way to, the best way. And as I had said earlier, even when you just connect with her before talking to her, you're going to see some of the things, or research her profile to see some of the things she's posted. I get a kick out of it because not only is it informative, it's outside of a world I'm in, but she writes things from an empathetic perspective, which, as I said earlier, I equate as being the kind of the opposite of what a search can be. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate
you. Thank you.
The favorites, everyone.
I hope this was helpful.
Oh, it was. The favorites, everyone watching, please share this with the men in your life, the ones you know that might be in a situation. Maybe they are working, but they're miserable where they are. Lori was talking about the fact that there's people in, transition. They've gone through some type of, to use her word, disruption. Please share this with them. And with Men Seeking Freedom, don't forget menseekingfreedom.com. Please click on the Freedom Brotherhood to learn more about that. We're forming groups now. And I'll see you on the next episode.